What is research? This is a great question as you begin the process of writing a research paper for your course, but also as you begin the journey in a program that will require you to write many research papers. What exactly is research? Kate Turabian, in her Manual for Writers, defines it this way or explains it this way. She calls it a process of systematic inquiry to answer a question that not only the researcher but also others want to solve. So you can think of it as a problem that needs to be answered, a question that you have that needs to be answered, like an itch that you need to scratch. And the only way to solve that problem is to explore the breadth of work that's been done on that topic or issue. And so this is essentially what research or the research process is. Sometimes we think of research as this very kind of static endeavor. Maybe even we think of it in a linear fashion. I have a question or I have a topic, and maybe I think about the question that drives that topic or envelops that topic. But I have a topic. I just need to find some sources, and if I do A plus B, that will equal C, which is the final result of the paper. And that's not really how research works. In fact, research is not so much linear as it is more circular or iterative. It's a process in which you are constantly asking questions, finding information, and then that information may lead to new questions, which leads you back to a certain earlier point of the research process, and that is kind of an ongoing dialogue as you make your way through a paper or a project. So what this highlights then in many ways is that research is a conversation. First and foremost, it's a conversation between you and your sources, right? You and the authors who wrote those sources. You have the opportunity when you pick up a book or an article and you open that up and you begin to read it, you open up not only that text, but you're opening up a conversation with that author. And so you are reading their thoughts and their work on a particular topic or an issue. And you're wrestling with that. You're engaging it. You're asking questions of that source. And then you're formulating your own ideas. Sometimes those ideas align with the authors that you're reading. Sometimes they push back, and most times it's a combination of those things depending on how many sources and what sources you're reading. So if you're engaging your sources the way you should be, you'll find yourself in a sort of back and forth dialogue with the authors of those texts. In addition to it being a conversation between you and the authors, it's also a conversation between you and your readers. Now, your reader circle is going to be much smaller in an academic program than if you were publishing more broadly. It'll be confined mostly to your professors and maybe some other staff members like librarians. But every time that you do research and you submit writing that is research-based, you are opening up a conversation between you and those who will eventually read your work. Now, when you're doing research, I like to say that you need to be characterized by two things, and that's effectiveness and efficiency. You need to be effective in your research, meaning you need to find the right and relevant sources for your paper and the aims of your paper, but also you need to be efficient. You don't have all the time in the world, right? You have other commitments in your life. You have other courses that you're taking and other assignments that you need to complete. So you need to be as efficient with your time as you can. And this is where the library comes in, and the library staff in particular. We can help you accomplish both of those tasks, being effective and efficient in your research. But the question is, why would you go to the library, in an information age in particular, why would you go to the library when you could find information using something like Google, or maybe even more specifically, something like Wikipedia? So maybe an example would help. I heard this story on NPR about a guy in the UK who bought tickets to a concert, and he didn't like the seats that he ended up with. So on a whim, he decided to make some changes to his arrangement. by going onto the band's Wikipedia page and kind of inserting himself into the band's circle of friends and family. So he inserted himself as the lead singer's cousin and also mentioned that he was the inspiration behind the hit single for that band at that time. And so he gets to the front of the line, he shows the doorman the Wikipedia page, and voila, he has VIP passes and he's backstage. So this is brilliant, right? I wish I had thought of something like this. You know, I've gone to so many concerts and it's stuck in some musty corner of a venue and not able to really even see or hear that well. This guy, you know, he just types himself into the Wikipedia page. It shows it to the doorman, right? Doorman, you know, he doesn't have 20 minutes to pull out his laptop and do research to find out whether it's true or not. He sees it on a Wikipedia page. It looks legit. He says, hey, come on in. And next thing you know, that guy is backstage in the green room eating snacks, hanging out with the band. I mean, it's brilliant, really. But it illustrates the problem with using something like Wikipedia, right? Anybody can get on there. They can put any sort of information and they can make it look legitimate. So look, at the end of the day, Big Brother will not be watching you as you conduct your research. We won't be looking over your shoulder to see what tools you're using and what tools you aren't using, although that will be reflected in the sorts of sources that you include in your work. However, I would just say this, that if you want to work smarter instead of harder, if you want to be more effective in your research by tapping into resources that have been curated for your specific purposes and for the topics that you're going to be covering in your courses and in your coursework, and if you want to be most efficient with the time that you have, then I would encourage you, suggest, and steer you toward the resources at Miller Library so that you can produce quality academic work and research.